We are lucky enough to have Jeremy Rosenthal, our legal expert, with us now. And Jeremy, thanks so much for the time this afternoon. Hope everything's going well in Texas.
Doing all right today, Mark. How are you?
Well, we're hanging in there, I guess. We're just kind of doing the news cycle shuffle this afternoon. It is always one thing after another, but it looks like there's been an awful lot happening in this Carmelo Anthony case. That is originally what we had kind of wanted to bring you on to talk about. Just your 30,000-foot perspective on this thing, kind of to start things off. What does this look like to you?
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you this much, Mark. This one's near and dear to my heart. I drive my daughter to school every morning right by the stadium where this happened. It's something that's affecting our local community. I've practiced in front of the judge who has made the news here. I practiced in front of her for probably 15 years, and so I know a lot of the players in this deal, and it's pretty disturbing in a lot of ways. The rhetoric has been pretty upsetting. So to update folks who are just tuning in, this was a track meet in Frisco, Texas, a suburb just north of Dallas, and what happened was two young men sitting underneath a tent, one from a different school, just a lot of downtime during a track meet, waiting in between events. Sparks start flying. They get into a fight. One of them pulls out a knife, stabs the other one time right in the heart. That young man died in his brother's arms, his twin brother's arms, and the assailant gets about 40 feet away, and police get him, and he's claiming self-defense here, but he was the accused, Carmelo Anthony, is African American. The victim in the case is white, and so there's been a lot of race cards getting played back and forth. A lot of misinformation on it. In fact, just this afternoon, and I don't know that you know this, Mark, but they had a press conference here in Dallas this afternoon where the victim's father showed up and was escorted away, and the defendant's family complained a lot about, look, we're getting death threats ourselves. Our kids are afraid to go to school. And there's just a lot of misinformation out there, and trying to get all the rhetoric to be tamped down, and all the vitriol, if you will, to kind of calm down as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that press conference this afternoon. Literally was just looked up my computer screen, and as my Twitter feed refreshed, it's on the video of the father being escorted out by law enforcement from that press conference. Obviously there's a lot of strong feelings about this case, but Jeremy, I got to be honest with you. I fail to see where the race card could possibly get played here, because it doesn't seem like this is a race crime. I mean, this seems like it was, number one, it seems like it was two 17-year-olds and one 17-year-old that chose to make a really poor decision.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I think the folks that are talking a lot about the race are not the people who are involved in it. I think it's everybody else. And I think it's the community, and I think, unfortunately, that's sort of what's out there in the public domain. But yeah, these are two 17-year-olds where sparks were flying, and they were getting into it. Who knows why? I mean, well, hopefully we'll get to learn something a little bit more about that. There were roughly, reading the police report, it looks like about somewhere between 15 and maybe 25 other kids that were in nearby proximity. Maybe, kids have these devices these days that can make videos really fast, and kids are really good at recording things on the fly like that. So maybe there'll be some recordings, and that will help us piece this together. But yeah, certainly a very emotional thing, very complicated, and at the moment it seems to be spinning out of control, and hopefully that abates and calms down a little bit.
I do find the choice the family made for their attorney, I find that to be a bit odd. Instead of seemingly going for someone who had, really great skills at legal defense, it's more of a civil rights attorney, it seems like.
Well, they've actually switched attorneys. This is their third lawyer. So they actually had a court-appointed attorney who I know extremely well, who is very talented and is quite a good lawyer. A lot of times when you get a court-appointed lawyer, there's a tendency to kind of, well, he's the free lawyer and he's the, he must not be any good. In this instance, they were quite fortunate to get him. They removed him from the case, brought on a couple of people who had, I think, I don't know if they had a civil rights background or not. Practicing in this area, I'm not familiar with them. They brought on another person, dismissed them, and brought on yet another lawyer who I am familiar with, but not extremely well. And he was able to get the bond lowered from the judge, and so he's done, it seems like, a pretty adequate job of handling the case so far.
Were you surprised to see that bond being lowered?
A little bit, yeah. But I think that this was a very, very brave call by the judge. So a couple things that I think folks sort of overlook in this. First off, bond is there to secure your appearance. We don't just, getting out of jail while you're waiting for trial is not just for rich people, right? It's for everybody.
Right.
And they sort of set an arbitrary bond amount, $1 million. That's just sight unseen, we're going to slap $1 million bond on you. And then when they came to court, this family has raised probably somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000 from what I've seen in a GoFundMe type account. They were able to pay bond. So this young man would be bonding out, regardless of whether that bond had been lowered. This actually came up during the hearing, and the lawyer argued, and he said, listen, rather than this money go to a bail bond company, we'd rather use it to defend him. We'd rather use it to investigate it. We'd rather use it to call experts. And it's really hard too when you're defending a case like this. I mean, the state of Texas has unlimited resources for investigators, for witnesses, for interviews, for investigators. When you're defending somebody, you don't. And that can be a real challenge. So when you do have that fund available, you do have that kind of funding available, it's pretty important to keep it. So the judge, I thought, followed the law and reduced the bond. I think she got a lot of heat for it. In some ways, I'm kind of surprised that she did, because I think the easy thing for this judge to do would have been to just leave it alone and just say, well, spend your money, and at least it won't be my fault. But this judge, again, made what I think is a pretty brave call.
Yeah, I guess on the face of all of this, to me, it seems like a very cut and dry case, right? I mean, we know that this suspect, Carmelo Anthony, was caught at school with a knife just a few weeks prior, which I guess kind of does beg the question. I mean, I don't know how, maybe things have changed, but when I was in school, if you got caught with a knife, you didn't come back to school. Matter of fact, you got expelled from school. So it does kind of raise the question as to why he was at a school sanctioned event to begin with, if he was caught with a knife a couple of weeks prior. But regardless of what Austin Metcalf may have done or may have said, I guess, does it change the fact that this kid just plunged a knife into Metcalf's chest and killed him?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple things here to keep in mind if you're defending this case. And I had not heard about the knife arrest or the knife incident from before, but there's a couple of things to sort of keep in mind here. The first is that, and a couple of defenses. When we talk about self-defense, we have the right to defend ourselves. In Texas, you have the right of self-defense. It fits in two very broad categories. If I'm afraid of what's called bodily injury, then I'm allowed to inflict bodily injury. In other words, if somebody hits me, I can hit them. If somebody punches me, pinches me, kicks me, I can use force to defend myself. Or if they touch me in an unwanted fashion, I'm allowed to use what's called force. I'm not allowed to use what we call deadly force unless I am threatened with deadly force, okay? Meaning that if somebody, meaning you can't bring a knife to a fist fight. So in essence, if Carmelo Anthony, and I don't know that he can, if he would testify in this case and say, I was in fear of serious bodily injury, that's why I had to use a knife. Now, the fact is that neither of these kids who were fighting him, I mean, he says, I think in the police report, it's indicating that, look, I was afraid of both of these twins. I think they were both trying to, kind of kick my rear end. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. And maybe somebody had something. I looked in their pocket. I thought he had something. You get a lot of self-defense cases that are kind of like that. So the jury would have to believe that. The jury would have to believe that he reasonably perceived that his own life was in danger. As hard as it may be for us to imagine, it's really from his standpoint. So that's one potential defense here that if I'm the prosecution, I'm concerned about, and if I'm the defense, I'm really digging into. The other one would be that the difference between first-degree murder and manslaughter, meaning that Carmelo Anthony did not intend to kill Austin Metcalf. And I think that, to me, is a much closer issue because and when you're in law school, they teach you to follow the intent element when it comes to murder. In other words, it is first-degree murder if you knowingly and intentionally try to end somebody's life. It is a specific intent crime. You are trying to kill another person by your actions. That's murder. If you recklessly end somebody's life, that's manslaughter, and that's instead of a life sentence you're looking at a maximum of 20 years. And in this instance, you do have some evidence that Carmelo Anthony can point to say, I didn't intend to kill him. Number one, he stabbed once, not 20 times. That's something that he can point to. Another thing that I think he could point to is after it was done, he asked police, is he okay? Which kind of says, look, I didn't think I killed him. I was just trying to get away from that situation maybe. So there is some evidence there that does support manslaughter. We're arguing about punishment in that instance, obviously, but sure. There are a few avenues here for Carmelo Anthony's defense.
Who has a more uphill battle in this, the defense or the prosecution, from your perspective?
The defense. Yeah, the defense. Yeah. I mean, look, he killed a guy, and we're not arguing was it him, right? That's always the first argument. That's always you look at OJ, right? That was the whole question, right. Is who done it, and that's the question in a lot of murders is who done it. So that part's solved for you. And really, if you're the prosecution, you're kind of shoring up self-defense versus intent, and your self-defense, and you're shoring up that it's murder, not reckless. So you're definitely in a better spot here if you're the prosecutor. Their challenge is going to be, if anything, public perception, because I think there's a lot of pretty upset people here in North Texas over this, and these are elected officials, and their phone's going to ring quite a lot over this, and they're going to be under pressure to probably to get a conviction here and to see Mr. Anthony off to as big a prison sentence as they can try to get for him. Right.
I want to switch gears here just real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other cases I wanted to talk to you about was the retrial of Harvey Weinstein.
Mm-hmm.
He was back in court, I believe it was this week.
Mm-hmm.
This Weinstein thing, like, he's not getting out anytime soon.
No,
obviously, like
no.
he's got more.
Yeah. He's serving, I think, a 16-year sentence in California, regardless of what happens here. But yeah, he's getting a retrial here. They're probably going to convict him again. But yeah, he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, this was basically
whatever I just said that got cut out was legal genius. Just understand, and I'm never going to repeat it. So there. Yeah, sorry. We just made radio history right there.
Right,
and I can't replicate it. I'm sorry. Just
the Weinstein thing, they said this was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they said it was something about mishandling of witnesses. Is that what it was? What exactly does that come down to?
Yeah, they won by too many points the first time. Is basically what it came down to. They kind of piled it on him a little much. So there's a couple things. What you have is in the rules of evidence, right? So you've got certain rules that where do we limit evidence, right? Where do we limit what's important to somebody's character or to somebody's life? For instance, if I'm on trial for whatever, right? Being a let's say I'm charged with robbing a bank. Okay. Can you bring in my dental records from the 4th grade to show that I never listened to my dentist? Right.
Right.
Can you bring in my bad report card from the 8th grade? You going to bring in my ex-girlfriend from high school? You want to do that? So at what point do we now, what about a bank that you think I robbed 2 years ago that I'm not on trial for today? In Harvey Weinstein's case, they kind of piled it on a little bit in New York State, and they sort of added some other women who were able to get up and testify and talk about instances that he was not on trial for at that time. And that can be really tricky, and you want to kind of, so in some instances cases get reversed, and that's what keeps the judge honest from not allowing the prosecution just to win a case by character assassination. So that's what I think I think that's why that first case got reversed. But the prosecution obviously still has a lot of material to work with against him.
Right. So even not putting that many points up on the board as they did, like he's still not. There's not going to be any lenience here. I would expect. Like
I'd be pretty surprised. Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised
right.
if he walked here. But you never know. And yeah. So, but that's what it comes down to is what you might call extraneous offenses. You got to connect it. You got to find a way. If you can find a way to make my dental records from the 5th grade relevant, then the judge might let you do it. But you got to connect the dots. And I think that's sort of the issue. And obviously that's an exaggerated example, but because they were calling in women who didn't like the guy for some reason. We can all guess why, right? But yeah, that's functionally, I think, why it was reversed.
There we go. Our guest this afternoon, legal expert Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, always appreciate the time, my friend. Great to talk to you, and we will look forward to next time catching up.
All right, Mark. Have a great day.